Good evening, dear listeners, and welcome once again to the Chronicler's Corner. Tonight, the winds howling outside my Baker Street window seem almost fitting, for we are transported in spirit to the rugged, windswept moors of Yorkshire. Sitting across from me are three women whose collective genius has quite literally altered the landscape of English literature. It is my profound honor to welcome Miss Charlotte, Miss Emily, and Miss Anne Bronte.
Thank you, Dr. Watson. We are quite unaccustomed to such public scrutiny, but we appreciate your warm welcome. It is a pleasure to be here, sir. Good evening.
Now, ladies, the world first came to know you not as the daughters of a Haworth clergyman, but as the brothers, Currer, Ellis, and Acton Bell. What possessed three proper Victorian gentlewomen to publish their innermost thoughts under the guise of men?
It was a matter of sheer necessity, Doctor. We had a vague impression that authoresses were liable to be looked upon with prejudice. We wished our writing to be judged on its own merit, not patted on the head by critics who would dismiss us merely because we wore petticoats.
A shrewd deduction, and sadly accurate for our times. Yet this deception led to a rather dramatic unmasking in London, did it not? I understand you, Charlotte, and you, Anne, had to travel through the night to prove you were not a single person.
We did indeed. Our publisher, Mr. George Smith, was entirely convinced that Currer, Ellis, and Acton Bell were one and the same man. Charlotte and I caught the night train to London, walked into his office, and placed his own letters to Currer Bell upon his desk. I shall never forget the utter bewilderment upon his face when he realized his fierce authors were two quiet Yorkshire women. I, for my part, remained at home. I found the entire expedition unnecessary. A book belongs to the reader. The author's face is of no consequence whatsoever.
Fascinating. You have always been the most fiercely private of the three, Miss Emily. That brings me to your singular masterpiece, Wuthering Heights. When it was first published, critics were utterly scandalized. One even called it a compound of vulgar depravity and unnatural horrors. How do you answer such charges?
I do not answer them, Doctor. I merely observe that polite society prefers its nature pruned and its passions diluted. Wuthering Heights is not a drawing-room romance. It is hewn from the very rock and heather of the moors. Heathcliff is not a gentleman. He is an elemental force, as harsh and unforgiving as the winter wind.
By Jove, he certainly is. I must confess, as a medical man, the psychological torment within those pages is as gripping as it is terrifying. Miss Charlotte, your own triumph, Jane Eyre, also possesses its share of Gothic shadows, not least the tragic figure in the attic. But what struck me most was Jane's own fiercely independent spirit.
Jane is plain and small, Dr. Watson, much like myself. But I firmly believe that women feel just as men feel. They need exercise for their faculties and a field for their efforts, as much as their brothers do. Jane's rebellion is simply the cry of a soul demanding the right to exist fully, without being ensnared like a bird in a net.
A rallying cry that has echoed across the empire. Now, Miss Anne, we must not overlook your extraordinary contributions. While your sisters deal in grand Gothic passions, your novel, The Tenant of Wildfell Hall, strikes me as unblinkingly realistic, detailing the grim realities of alcoholism and an abusive marriage.
I have always felt it is my duty to speak the unvarnished truth, no matter how unpleasant. We witnessed firsthand the destructive nature of addiction through the tragic decline of our own dear brother Branwell. I wish to depict things as they are, Doctor, to act as a warning rather than to weave a comfortable fantasy that helps no one.
A noble and courageous use of the pen, Miss Anne. Truly, I am staggered by the sheer volume of creation that emanated from one isolated parsonage. I have read that this shared imagination began in your childhood with a box of wooden soldiers.
Yes, Papa brought Branwell some toy soldiers when we were children. We each chose one and named it, and from those wooden figures, we built entire empires. We called them Glasstown and Angria, and Emily and Anne created the Kingdom of Gondel. We wrote hundreds of tiny books detailing their wars and romances.
It was our sanctuary. The outside world was often cold and plagued by illness, but in Gondel we were queens and conquerors. The moors and our imaginations were the only borders we recognised.
And what magnificent empires you built. Ladies, your time with us has been a rare privilege. You have shown us that the quietest rooms can harbour the loudest voices. Thank you for stepping out of the shadows of Haworth to join us tonight.
The honour was ours, Dr. Watson.
God bless you, sir. Good night.